Hi, I'm Victoria Dougherty. I thought we'd have a little musical accompaniment for this week's Love at First Right, especially since we will be talking more about sensuality and sensual love scenes. I think that, Annie Lennox and the Eurythmics are probably one of the most sensual rock bands there are. And I love that song. But I want to get going today about some of the things that we've been talking about last week. Just to recap, I am actually a Cold War thriller author and essay writer, and I am endeavoring to write an epic romance. And one of the decisions that I've made is that I will not be doing overt sex. I will instead be doing love scenes that are just incredibly sensual and take you to the edge and have your heart pounding and have you melt into your seat. That is what I'd really like to achieve with this. And so one of the things that I realized this week as I was actually writing a scene that on the surface seems like it would be the opposite of that. I was writing a very violent, actually a horrific scene in this novel. None of my books are easy. Obviously, I'm a thriller writer. So even as I endeavor to go into this epic romance and the story of love between these two characters, there's still going to be a tremendous amount of darkness and war and really some pretty extreme circumstances that our lovers will have to navigate while they're also falling in love and navigating, the early stages of their relationship. But one of the reasons why I love a more sensual approach is, for one thing, I'm going to be dealing with a lot of firsts with my characters, and I think that firsts are tremendously powerful, and not just intimate firsts. The first time you feel betrayed, the first time you see someone die. I think these are very powerful and sensual experiences that I also want to explore in this book, which I hope to make a series. And as I was writing this incredibly intense story, I was really realizing how important it is for the darker aspects of the story to mirror in some ways the more beautiful and loving aspects, the love scenes more specifically. I realized how much my love scenes need to be a complement to the more in my case, horrific and horrible scenes. And my war scenes and my scenes of just tremendous brutality, I want to handle with the same amount of sensuality. And I don't mean that in a sort of, again, I don't mean that in a sexual way. I really do mean in a way of the senses. I mean, obviously the love scenes are sexual just in their nature, even if you're not doing overt sex. It's leading there and your characters are attracted to one another. But even scenes of war and scenes of murder and painful and prolonged death perhaps are, or at least have the potential to be, really, really sensual and assault you in that way. The smells, what you're seeing, how what you're hearing, the way someone dying on the battlefield might be speaking to you, the quality of their voice, what you see in their eyes, the smell. As I said again, the smells coming from them. A lot of people, when they are dying or when they're extremely frightened, might defecate, or something that dramatic, and also the smell of fear on someone. And I think conversely, that when you are writing a love scene, there are so many smells going on. There are so many sensory experiences happening all at once, and they can be really overwhelming. And they are what make up attraction, and they're what make up that level of excitement and ardor. It is what makes us tremble in the presence of certain people, people who would just affect us in that way. And it is also, we also tremble in the presence of extreme fear and extreme circumstances. And I think that those have to mirror one another. As I said, they really have to be. If you're going to have love scenes that are that intense, for my own enjoyment, I mean, both as a writer and as a reader, I want the more dramatic scenes and um, the problems and experiences that the characters have to be as intense as the love they're feeling. In fact, I think that oftentimes those feelings are intensified, by the presence of really trying times. I know in my own experience, and I'm sure that many of you will probably be nodding as I say this. I mean, some of the closest and most intense uh, times that my husband and I have shared was when our youngest daughter was born very ill. And it seems odd to say it, but those were also some of the most uh, profoundly romantic times we've ever had. And that seems like an odd word to use for a situation that was really quite so awful. But it was that. It was that. We felt very intensely the profound love that we have for each other during that time. And we both felt so lucky that we had each other to go through, that we had each other for this, and that we were going through this with each other and not with somebody else. I very vividly remember thinking, thank God that this is the person I chose, that this is the person I married. I just can't even imagine going through this with anyone else. And it's an incredibly bonding experience. It's a silver lining, to an occurrence that you hope you never ever have to go through again, that you really would never wish on anyone else. And so, again, these are the things that I want to explore. I mean, I'm calling this video Sensuality in the Heart of Darkness, because I think that in the heart of darkness there is a tremendous amount of sensuality, and that it can really intensify our feelings of love for the people in our lives, not just our lovers, although that too, but also, a sister, a brother, a mother. Um, it's it these really difficult um, events like war, like death, they change us, and they magnify everything around us and really bring things into relief, and oftentimes provide clarity. Um, and so and I think that those moments are incredibly important in a story. I think that bringing the reader to those moments and helping them navigate uh, those um, long journeys that are filled with just so many peaks and valleys, the journeys of love, the journeys of loss, that I think characters really need to share. For me as a reader, what I tend to walk away from um, is when when the stakes just aren't high enough, when I feel like the characters that I'm reading about aren't rising to the occasion, that they don't, that perhaps what they're focusing on is small, or it brings me to a place where I feel that even their feelings for one another are trite. And I think that for, a romance to really be great and successful and epic and really achieve what it needs to achieve, it can never be trite. Um, even when the characters are stumbling and are perhaps behaving badly and not putting their best foot forward for us, which is interesting. That I'm not trying to create perfect characters. I don't find those interesting at all. But I think you have to give them those stumbles as well, so that they can, so that when they do right, when they do rise to the occasion, it's breathtaking, and you fully understand why their lover is so into them. Is so enamored of them. You say, but of course, um, because this is what they're capable of, and they saw that within their lover's soul. So anyway, that is pretty much all for today's discussion about sensuality. We will certainly be revisiting this topic maybe next time, but what I also want to talk about next time, and maybe we can talk about both, is men in love and war. Um, I get a lot of mail from men, which I think I mentioned on my first video. I'm not positive, but I have gotten a lot of men have written to me telling me their love stories, and I have a fair amount of male readers, and I think that the way men and women approach romance, and I do mean romance, I mean really, gushing romance, and men are gushingly romantic. They don't like to show it all the time, but they are that. They just do it in their own way, and I think their way is so interesting, and I think that the way men love is so interesting, and I love to explore that. Um, if, and I think that it makes a romance novel far more interesting and multidimensional if we can really uh, either see it from a man's point of view at certain points during the story, or feel like we understand the man's point of view, um, and how he is, and how and why he is behaving the way he is behaving, why he is falling in love with this woman, and what it's all going to mean. So, thank you.